as she already said, we will be speaking about messenger games. I think by now, like, who of you knows what messenger games are about, or what are messenger games, or who has played a messenger game? So there's a few guys who have played, and a few who have not. So what we'll do is we will speak about the basics, so everybody's on the same page for the beginning. And then we will go into more deep themes like monetization, for example, how to get success on the messenger. And in order to do so, I've really got the experts of the industry, of the messenger industry right now here in the panel. And I would like each of you to quickly introduce yourselves. Just a few words, who you are, what you're doing, and then we start from there.
I'm not Tung, obviously. He's right now on Mallorca. So yeah, my name is Patrik. I work for Spil Games. I'm in the industry since 12 years. So I started on the feature phone side, did Facebook games in the past, and then smartphone games. And now the company Spil is obviously still in the mobile business. We have a big portal side, but we also started developing with Facebook. On the side, I do a lot of networking events. That's hobby gamers networking, and yeah. That's about me. Thanks.
Yeah, hi. Alexander Krug, CEO and co-founder of SOFTGAMES. SOFTGAMES is one of the pioneers of HTML5 gaming. We've started HTML5 or investing into HTML5 gaming back then in 2012, so very early days. Since then, we developed over 450 HTML5 games, and also one of the early movers and preferred partners or launch partners for instant games back in November 2016. Currently, we're one of the top 3 developers on Messenger. We basically do have the Candy Crush of Messenger with Cookie Crush is the largest title from our side. And beside this, we have under the SOFTGAMES brand a few other games live there, like the Solitaire Story. And another brand we have is called Roffle Arrow of L, where all the super instant or super casual games are live there. So in total, we have about 50 games live on Messenger.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, my name is Elina Arponen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Quicksave. So Quicksave is a fairly young company, founded only 1 year ago, and we are totally specialized in instant games and chat games. But the team as such has been working on the area for over 3 years now. We had a previous studio that was acquired by the Palringo messaging app, where we worked for 2 years building games for their platform, and then last year founded Quicksave, and now we've been working with the instant games.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Wiggins. I'm CEO and co-founder of Mojiworks. So we're about 18 months old, founded to completely focus on messaging games and all messaging platforms. As for me, kind of go back 20 years in the games and tech industry. This is the 3rd startup focused on games that I founded. The first one I sold to Zynga, ran Zynga UK. So we were around for sort of the last time that the mobile and app platforms were changing again. And we think that messaging is the next big platform for games.
Good afternoon. This is Janos from TreasureHunt. We are a Berlin-based mobile gaming company, dominantly focused in modular mainstream casual games, and we are actually just one of the rookies in the room in terms of the speakers, because we are just about to essentially expand towards the messaging game platforms, because we see that's essentially where the industry is heading in a nutshell. And I'm responsible for marketing, so also a little bit out of the scope from there.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So just to make sure everybody's on the same page, so can you guys just define, because Messenger is a very new platform, right? So we have seen for many, many years the ecosystems, the app stores, Google Play, App Store, iTunes, etc. So what makes Messenger games unique? What is basically Messenger games? Thinking of it.
Okay, I'll start. So for me, one of the core ideas is that the users don't download any apps. So it's about playing apps. It's about playing games inside apps that you already have installed, which makes the experience very different. And it's kind of a paradigm shift in how users find and play games.
Yeah, definitely. But besides this, I think the major difference as well that it's basically social by default. So basically, once the user started playing a game on the Messenger, we as a developer have the access to the whole friends feed or general the friends information. We know everything about them. We know the name. We know the picture. We can generate leaderboards, compare the scores directly with the friends, and can re-engage them much better as you would be able to do this on the apps on the App Store when you build apps. So you don't have to convince anybody, hey, please connect now with Facebook for, I don't know, 10 whatever coins here. They're basically directly connected. And I think this is also like one big advantage besides no download. But then, yeah, it makes like messenger games very special.
Yeah, I would also say that messenger games are special in the sense that games you do for your phone, well, apps you develop for your phone, and then these kind of games you develop for the messenger. So as we normally optimize for the iPhones and the Android phones of this world, we now have to optimize for the messenger. So instead of putting in a gyroscope or any other features of the phone that you would normally support with your game, now you need to support all the social features that the messengers are enabling, and that really seems to be the kicker here, and also the paradigm shift in thinking about those games differently, because your phone apps or traditional games wouldn't likely work on the messenger, so you really have to work around it.
Okay, thank you very much. So, I mean, Scott, you already said it, or you briefly already introduced the topic. So, how much is it different, like looking at a messenger game versus a native game? Like, what is required to have success? You know, to actually bring a game live. Is it very different? Can I just put my iOS developers on it, and tomorrow I have an instant game, or what do I need to do?
So I think there are two separate things here. There's like the development of the game, and then there's the design of the game. So from a development point of view, I think all of us are probably exclusively at this point developing in HTML5, like primarily. So we're not building sort of on another platform and then trying to somehow port something. Because it is a JavaScript or TypeScript-based platform, you're not going to be able to take something that you've developed in, say, Unity, or at least old Unity, or native iOS and just port it to the platform. That's not how it's going to work. So
I cannot take a Unity game and put it in instant games?
You're going to struggle. So kind of existing Unity does have an export for WebGL, but that's really not. I was going to say it's not fit for purpose, but that's slightly harsh. It's not designed for giving you something that you can run within the messaging platform. Unity did announce at GDC that they're working on a new version of Unity called Unity for Small Things, which is designed from the get-go to work on these sorts of platforms. But that's kind of at the early testing stage at the moment. It's not public. So what that means is that you can't take pretty much any normal mobile game and just move it to this. That's not what's going to happen. Obviously, you've got companies in the space like you guys who've got a big portfolio of HTML5 games, and then if you've got that, you can bring that to these platforms relatively easily. So that's from a development point of view. From a design point of view, though, sort of following from the previous question about what makes messaging games special, for us, we're really focused on how do these platforms enable a new type of gameplay experience. So I wouldn't just I think it'd be a mistake to just treat kind of the social aspects of the platform as a kind of nice-to-have thing. You've got to think about, our focus is on why would a player care about playing a game on a messaging platform? And that, I don't think, is going to be about ease of distribution, because they don't really struggle with using the App Store anyway. The reason why players will play this is because it gives them a new experience that they don't get from their normal mobile games. And for us, that's about it being social at its core. So the way that we approach the design of the games is with the group as the primary user. This isn't about taking a solo experience and bolting multiplayer stuff onto it. It's about kind of rethinking the game. So if you're thinking about moving to messenger platforms, I'd look at it from both of those points of view. One as an HTML5 distribution platform that has hundreds of millions or billions of monthly active users possibly, but the experience needs to be something that's designed for messenger or messaging, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agree on the design point of view there.
Everybody agrees, yeah.
What I want to add now, because especially when you're coming from the app space, I think what's very important on Messenger or instant games in general is the size of the game basically matters a lot. So if I now download an app, I think it's normal like 50, 100, 500 MB, whatever. You just download it through Wi-Fi, you don't care actually. And on Messenger, it's basically you always have to think about people are like instantly downloading this, so they are basically permanently, not really, but permanently requiring like an access to the internet. So if I do have an Edge connection or a 3G connection, still the people should be able to play your game. A maximum, let's say, of 10 or 15 or even 20 MB. You have to design games which are not as big as they used to be on the App Store, I'd say. So yeah, no. So this is something what I think, especially when you're coming from the app space, it's very, very important to keep in mind. Keep the size of the game as small as possible.
Yeah, I just want to add on that because I do think yes, that's really crucial. You know, the initial download has to be rather less than 5 seconds, so for the users don't drop out and get. I mean, it's really instant gaming, so everything has to happen instantly. But you can build longer experiences, but then you need to download on your own backend, and you need to be, know what you do technically. I wouldn't say that the games will stay small totally.
So thinking about this, like, obviously I cannot build, because what we're seeing in the app stores by now is like games which are hundreds of MB size big, right? So you have 3D games, you have very complex games. What kind of games can I build for Messenger?
There are already 3D games there as well, so you can do 3D. I'd say it's more like what Matthew was saying about, why would this game exist in Messenger? Like how the design is supported by the social messaging environment. Other than that, you can build casual games, you can build mid-core games, you can build whatever type of gameplay.
Yeah, I think a big question for everybody to ask themselves is also, whom do I build those games for, right? Like, is there like a difference between the audience on your typical phone and then the audience using the messaging app? And I think when you look at the messaging apps out there, take in Facebook, for example, you have a specific demographic, and you even have a specific country mix for the moment. That's obviously changing as the platform is growing, but still you have a fraction of what you currently have on a mobile audience, so you need to rethink your game for it. And I think when you look at, on average, younger audiences, somewhere between 16 to 25 years old, as your core demographic, then you really also need to think about, okay, do those players actually appreciate the games that I would normally bring out on the phone, right? Like, could I bring out the same game on the Messenger? And I think often the answer is, well, simpler games, more casual games, like you just said, is probably the answer for the moment.
I think in the past we always, we had different talks, and always the question was coming exactly like this, okay, HTML5, can I really build, let's say, complex games with HTML5? I think it changed over the last couple of years. I mean, with HTML5 today, you can basically build what also from the App Store, actually. So the technology evolved over the last couple of years. So there is not that you have a very big, big problems of building more complex games, let's say.
So in general, okay, if the technology is ready, I can basically cover every genre. I can do 3D games. I can build my game for a social experience. What kind of game should I create? What is a hype right now on instant games? If I'm starting right now, should I go for a bubble shooter? What should I do right now?
All right. So first and foremost, I think, at least again, being in the beginning part of this journey, for us, the decision was more or less how do we approach it more from a product strategy perspective. So is it something where we say, okay, this is going to be a feeder product towards our existing mobile portfolio on the native platforms, or is it something where we consider, okay, this is going to be a standalone product, a standalone platform? We, for the time being, decided to go with the latter one. So again, still at the really early phases, but we decided not to do essentially a system where we would be able to get a system, a product out, a game that will be able to feed them, but the future products that we are developing, but rather focus on a standalone product trying to maximize the platform itself. In terms of what is hot, of course, I mean, we come from a relatively mainstream, casual, actually bubble shooter genre, so definitely for us, these type of casual games were close to our hearts and close to our competences. But I do believe, as you mentioned, that again, the Messenger platform itself is still evolving a lot. So there are, I think, quite a number of different opportunities and avenues to exploit. And because of this, I would not necessarily say that there's a dominant design that, okay, this always has to be, I don't know, a really casual, hyper-casual, match-free type of game. But it is something that I think there is still enough room, both for indies as well as established players, to innovate and bring something new to the platform itself.
Yeah, I think that's why the two of us are sitting here as well, because I don't think we'd be starting, I certainly wouldn't have started a mobile business on the App Store at this stage, whereas on messaging platforms, there's so much to discover. It really does feel like it was in 2008 and 2009 on mobile, where at that point, for those of you around then, no one understood anything. There was loads of crazy things coming out on iOS all the time, and then over the next few years, we started to kind of discover the genres and themes and understand the audience better. That's pretty much what we're going through now with Messenger. So I think in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll also be in a similar stage to how the App Store was in like 2012, where it's like a little bit more locked down, and hopefully all of us are the successful messenger games companies. So there's so much to discover that there isn't this dominant genre, and you can see so much experimentation. You also can see, cloning and a few of the other things that can happen with the technology makes unfortunately slightly easier. But as it becomes clear what does work, I think you'll see more investment in the games, and so then it's like slightly more defensible once hopefully we discover the correct genres and themes.
I mean, what you mentioned is quite interesting. You compared it to the early days of the app stores, right? And there's always a lot of comparison when it comes from instant games also to the very early days of Canvas. So everybody still remembers there was Zynga, there was a lot of spamming back then. Hey, give me an item. I need this for my farm. I need to really feed my cow now. Oh, you haven't sent me the cow feed. My cow is super unhappy. Unfortunately, now it died. Is it the same right now on instant games? Is it like the Wild West right now? Is it like the time of opportunity? What is the state? Where are we right now?
I don't think it's the Wild West, but I do think there's a big opportunity, obviously. I think... So I used to work for Zynga, but on the mobile side of things, so it's slightly different. I don't think anyone, even the people that develop some of those games, would want to see that happen with the messaging platforms, because that kind of growth hacking for very short-term revenue goals, it doesn't lead to like a long-term sustainable business. And I think everyone really learned that from the last time that was a thing. And also you can see the platforms themselves are very conscious of how they maintain a top quality user experience. And I think Facebook are doing a good job in trying to control some of those channels, whilst at the same time using them for the benefit of players and developers. That's not to say there aren't like super spammy games sometimes, just as there are on the App Store. Sometimes there are going to be situations where you want to turn off notifications. But I don't think there's as much risk there. Certainly like on our kind of list of risks, that's gone way down in comparison to where it used to be, because I think you're seeing a platform that cares about the end user experience, and we don't want to sacrifice players for the long term.
So I mean, obviously Facebook learned from this, right? From the early days of Canvas, whatsoever. Is there any other benefits what you as an instant game publisher can benefit from? Like, how is it like when you're looking at it from a product view, right? Can you use anything to analyze the user data? Like, where are we standing there?
Well, yeah, certainly you can analyze. Well, actually, Facebook itself is offering quite good analytics on the data, and you can set whatever data points you want. So you get a lot of data, but it's as these guys have already said, it's still new. So everyone's kind of still finding out what are the best kind of games. And even though it was just kind of announced that there's over 1,000 games now already. So for us, it may start to feel like, oh, it's getting crowded, but actually compared to the App Store, like that's really nothing. So there's still a lot of room for different types of games and different type of genres, and I really see that it's still beginning, and there's a lot of opportunities.
So at the moment, there's basically no categories in instant games, right? So, and you said like, okay, there are 1,000 games already. So it's quite unlikely that potentially, I don't know, my game or anybody else's game is going to appear in your feed, because I just have to scroll down, and eventually this list is limited to 100 games. And what Facebook is doing, they have an algorithm based on your preferences, based on your player behavior, what kind of games you're playing. So how do I make sure that my game gets discovered? How is it working?
I guess there's different opinions on the best practices that people have found. For us, it's really key to have the social connections in the game design and the gameplay, so that you don't only discover it from the list, but you discover it through your friends, and your friends are playing it, or they are recommending it to you, or they want to play with you. and it's key that people can try the game first, and then when they like it, they will have an incentive or some reason like why they would like to share that as well, so that there's some kind of a multiplayer aspect into it that makes it kind of better with friends.
Like obviously for us, it's like the way how we hope we get discovered with our content is basically the portfolio strategy. So the more content we have there, the higher the chance to get discovered one of our content. And then Facebook is basically providing a very nice feature. It's called cross promotion. So you can basically just send the users from one game to another game to another game to another game, and it works out pretty well, let's say. So that's how we use like or get use how to say like use the list feature, let's say like this.
Yeah, maybe a quick question before I give an answer. But how many of you guys develop actually already for Facebook Instant Messenger or for Messenger games in general? So it's a good part. So I think that's really where I'm getting at when we're talking about 1,000 games already out there, right? I think we can also use the same number and come from a different angle, saying there's just 1,000 games. So it's 800 games or so a day, I think, on the mobile platforms coming out, and there are just 1,000 games. With the right strategy, and I think portfolio strategy is a very important point here, together with the social aspect that has been mentioned over and over again, but that is really what the messenger is in the first place. So you will hear it, I think, throughout the talk more often. If you focus or figure those two things out, like a well-defined portfolio strategy, and then on top of that, make sure that people use word of mouth to get their friends to play. Mostly, that's why I think competitive games with a high score attached to them do very well. So it doesn't really matter if it's an endless runner. For example, we have Spil games. We have Endless Lake there. Got a lot of installs. I think 47. Well, installs. Got a lot of plays there. Over 50 million by now. We've been one of the launch partners. So we are with the company, or as a company, we are there for I think a year and a bit already. Which is, again, it's super short in terms of time that we had. And now the platform is open since a couple of months, so there's really still, I would say, even a first mover advantage if you discount the, I think, 17 launch partners. You guys have been launch partners, I think, as well. So yeah, I would really think about getting your stuff together. Plus, again, it's still an opportunity for smaller companies. I mean, mobile space right now is so heavily defended in the top 10, even the top 50 category, and it's hard and painful to get in there. It's possible, but again, it's an uphill battle. On the messenger platforms, there's a lot of opportunities at the moment for small studios or smaller studios for lean development. So yeah, I would say. Carefully considered.
So how does it work at the moment? Like when I publish a game, do I instantly get free users? How is that? So I publish my instant games. I have it in the list, and now I just get free users. How is like how do I get new players on instant games?
So basically, like this, you have like two chances. You can go immediately globally, and then it basically depends on the algorithm of Facebook or whatever that you get found, and then getting organically all the new users there. But you have also the chance to basically soft launch your game in certain territories, and there's the same. Basically, you get organically a few thousands of users every day for free, and that's obviously like the most amazing fact about this kind of platform.
Mm-hmm. And what KPIs are defining if my game goes higher or goes lower in this list? Are there some KPIs how this is working?
So just going back to your previous point, because I think it really relates to this. I think it's really interesting to see the way that Apple have taken the App Store and the way that other platforms are taking their platform. So obviously in iOS 11, Apple to the App Store really down and curated editorial routes. And I don't know if anyone remembers when Chomp got bought by them. I think it was like 2012, 2013. And the idea at that point was it sounded like they were going to make it much more of a recommendation-based engine, which I think works a lot better when you have very high numbers of assets, whether it be games or music or whatever. What you really want is the platform to recommend you things based on what you've already played. Now, Apple have totally moved away from that, which is one of the problems with the App Store if you're not already an established player, because there's only two ways you can get in front of people. You either get featured or you spend on UA. Now, the other platforms coming on with messaging, and I think particularly with Facebook, clearly Facebook are a platform that's all about trying to surface content to the people that want that content, right? So with the approach they're taking to that list of messaging games, I would think that being based on how likely it is a particular game is going to resonate with you, those are going to be the ones that get surfaced to you, which is why if you try and compare what you see with what someone else sees, they're not going to be exactly the same. So if you're a developer trying to figure out, well, how do I get, good visibility to people? First and foremost, you need to make a game that resonates with people, particularly with your target audience, really strongly. And for me, that would be about retention. So for us, we're looking at really early in soft launch. We're only optimizing for retention. Day 1, day 2, really early retention. And if we can get that to a decent level, and retention on messaging platforms does tend to be lower because you're within someone else's app. But if you can get retention up to a certain level, then I think you're going to find, you're going to get better organic downloads. Right. You're going to get more boosts, basically.
So like in the app stores, if you soft launch, if you soft launch a title and you have KPIs, day 1 retention below 50%, that's considered a failure, right? So how is it on instant games? Is it also 50%, or what are the?
It's not 50%.
So what is it on instant games?
I mean, I would say like if you're getting above 20-25%, you're doing well.
Okay. On day 1 retention, right?
Yeah. So the retention definitely it works differently, and still a bit about the user acquisition. So Facebook is also still developing the platform. So like the algorithms and everything, it's somehow. I mean, obviously they do exactly like Matthew was saying, like optimizing on the discoverability and the audiences, and so. So for you, the game developer, you have to work on the retention to optimize for that, and then also kind of know like when you. I'd say the soft launch is a very important step. I don't know if you guys everyone do it, but that is kind of your test of like how you can see and clearly the good thing is that you don't have to pay for those users. I mean, in App Store nowadays, most studios are paying for their test users as well. So you can get that audience to test your numbers and see if you need to still tweak something in your game.
So how many users do I get for a soft launch game? So if I put out my game there, put it in soft launch, so how many users do I get on average?
I guess it was said already, like some thousands a day.
Okay, so 1,000 a day I get for free. I soft launch the game, and then it pretty much depends on the retention, where the game is located within my list, and also based on my personal preferences.
And it depends also on your soft launch countries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are different soft launch countries, different tiers where I can choose to soft launch my country.
Yeah. There's different selections.
Okay, great, good. And then apart from this organic growth, because it's for free, are there also options or plans to also acquire users with paid acquisition?
Yep, so as far as I'm aware, Facebook is actually actively developing a specific product for this. I think it was also flagged a couple of times at F8, this year's conference. Having said that, again, the beauty of the platform, as we discussed it a number of times before, is the organic reach and kind of the social intent. But still to be seen how that will perform, because of course, granted at this moment, of course, the monetization is a little bit lagging behind. Of course, the ad-based supported monetization is still working very fine from the Facebook ad serving, but still, backing it out to a good CPI and ultimately a good return on ad spend is still to be seen how successful that could be. Mm-hmm. So.
And at the moment, I do have my game live, I published it, I have my organic users, then how do I make money on the platform? So you already said, okay, some advertisement revenue, and what are the formats? What is Facebook offering?
So at this moment, of course, rewarded video, because that's the dominant design in the mobile space in general, as well as the interstitials. As far as I'm aware, the best practice is to try out both placements and see which one works the best. Again, coming from a mobile-first background, we definitely prefer more the pull nature, so more the rewarded videos, but definitely we are also A/B testing certain placements and just see what makes sense. So at the end of the day, ultimately it will be essentially the battle between monetization and retention, so kind of trying to figure out how we get the correct engagement and still how we essentially generate it to translate it down to actual revenue that we would be able to make.
Mm-hmm. Matthew, how is it for you?
at the moment, just for those who don't know, there's a mix of ad revenue and IAP, but there's IAP on Android and web and not on iOS for probably obvious reasons. And I think Facebook have announced what the revenue splits are on those platforms as well. So effectively what's happening on Android is that Google take their 30%, then of that 70% that's left, Facebook take their 30%, so the developer ends up with 49%, forgetting about taxes. We're focused on ad revenue. So we see this as like a high volume opportunity. So we're trying to make games that are really for a mainstream audience. That doesn't necessarily mean casual or hyper casual. It does mean that we want to get tens of millions of people playing our games, and so therefore like an ad revenue model makes a lot of sense. I actually went to a really awesome short talk by Simon Hay from Space Ape earlier on today, which when they launched the video for, you should go and have a look if you're interested in ad revenue, because it's about Fastlane, which is the title that they've got like 700,000 DAU with 13% ARPDAU just from ads in the US, so they're doing really well on that. And their point of view on it is kind of unique because they're talking about, well, we want, in a way, like they want to optimize for the advertiser because that's how they're going to get basically better ad revenue. Mobile game players are totally fine with ad revenue as a kind of transaction with developers. So we think we can build that kind of ARPDAU through ads on Messenger, but with multi-million DAU. And so that leads you quite quickly to a place where you're able to make a lot of daily revenue. So we've kind of switched it around in our thinking of going, well, ads is the primary monetization mechanism because that's going to happen on all platforms, so across iOS, Android, and web. And then any IAP stuff is more the icing on the cake. I think that's going to be a pretty successful model.
Okay.
And I wouldn't hold your breath for iOS IAP.
Yeah, I think at the moment the issue that we're having with the IAP, with Apple not supporting it at all, and then with Google and Facebook both taking 30% each is a bummer, of course. And then there's still, within the platform itself, when we're talking about Facebook, there are still issues, right? So in-app purchase is not as seamless as we all hope for, but that's going to change. Again, the platform is growing. So I would assume that in-app purchases become a more significant part of the revenue stream for people. I mean, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, right? Like I mentioned that the target demographic, or that the demographic at the moment is more like a younger audience, and then also from countries that are not famous about spending a lot of money in the mobile space at least. And we do see a similar effect on the Facebook Messenger platform for the moment, at least for the Spil games. But again, the platform is growing, and I would assume that in-app purchases will grow in significance because there are going to be games that really put this one into the core of their game design. So I think the breakout successes that we're going to see in terms of very high ARPDAU, those are going to be in-app purchasing games.
I mean, like I think it's like always. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it will be some kind of combination, some kind of. I mean, like with ads, most likely you can monetize 100% of the users either through interstitials plus reward ads and with a low opt-in or high opt-in rate, let's say. But I think at the end of the day, in order to be successful, also on the UA side, you have to have a working, say, in-app purchase environment. Otherwise, you will never ever be able to, get the money back you're spending on UA at some point. So,
is the eCPM you guys are seeing compared to the native field? Is it similar? Like because on Facebook Instant Games, it's only the audience network, right? But if you would have like an app with only the audience network without any mediation whatsoever, is it similar in terms of eCPMs, or where are we standing?
A great question, actually. When I was at GDC earlier this year, there was the main question actually everybody asked in the development community, and I was talking to several developers back then. At that point, Spil Games itself didn't use in-app advertisement to generate revenues. So the feedback was, yes, it's very similar. So if you would just, on your mobile app today, look into the CPMs generated through exclusively the Facebook Audience Network, then your CPMs on the Facebook Instant Messenger will be the same or very similar. So that's an expectation. Obviously, then on mobile you have more a larger variety, and then the CPMs on mobile ultimately become stronger than on Facebook. But again, for a one-on-one comparison for the Audience Network, same. So it's good.
Okay, great. So at the moment, you can monetize the games through the Audience Network. You can also, as Scott Patrik already said, it's already in a purchase, already started a few weeks ago. I think Everwing was one of the first guys who started like beginning of January. Do you guys then plan to go heavily towards in a purchase in the future, or it will be always, you know, advertisement plus in a purchase?
Yeah, I guess we can see there's different strategies here at the panel, and you know there are different ways to look at this. I mean, it's a huge market. I mean, there's space for many different types of genres and different approaches. Ours will be twofold. I think you know we're gonna move more towards kind of mid-core type of gameplay. So that means we're gonna move towards in-app purchases as well. I mean, that's kind of the kind of games that we intend to build, and I feel that those games will be well supported by the in-apps.
I mean, like as soon as let's say like the monetization environment is the same like in the App Store, you can basically do everything what's possible in the App Store. You can you know, do just normal upsell of premium currency. You can just focus on reward ads, or you can just say for hyper casual games, disable the ads for paying, I don't know, €2.99 or something like this. So that's a cool thing, and then I think it depends at the end of the day on the game, on the strategy of the company, and so on and so on. And yeah, you're basically open to do everything at some point.
What is your guys' current favorite game on instant games, and why?
Can be my own game.
It cannot.
So beside Cookie Crush, no, basically, like for example, personally, I'm playing a lot of games on Messenger. So far, I'm still looking for a game which really hooks me for a long period of time. I haven't found it so far, but I think no. What I see what's coming actually, the games are getting more and more complex with a lot of more meta layers, I'd say. So I think at some point, because I have to say, like I'm not a typical gamer, let's say at some point, I'm sure I'll find the games, but I like the solitaire game, for example, very simple, but I'm in general love solitaire games. But yeah.
Yeah, a bit of the same. Like I'm still looking for my my best game there, but there's been some games like Everwing did get me for a period of time last year. And then I'm playing a lot of kind of brain puzzle type of games like 2048 or some Connect the Dots, or you know this kind of brain games. But those I kind of play for a while, and yeah, let's see. I'm quite excited to see where the games are going as well.
Yeah, I think all of us feel like there could be better games on Messenger, or we wouldn't be sitting here. I'm really interested in the games that try and do something different that you couldn't do elsewhere. So a game that like really hit in our company was The Test, which is almost not a game. It's just you know, answer questions about yourself, and then your friend gets asked about your answers to those questions. It has it's sort of a gamified app, but it's really social. And as your connection to the other person you're running through that experience with increases, the questions get edgier and edgier and edgier. To the point where like we've got people in the company saying, you know, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable answering that question, particularly when it's in the group context that all employees are in. But I think that points to that there's a connection there that you don't get on games on other platforms. So I'm really interested in that sort of thing.
From my side, I also didn't really find kind of the dominant design which game to stick with. I generally agree with Elina, more the brain puzzle types. But again, I think one of the beauties and one of the interesting parts of the instant games that it's instant and you have an instant catalog of quite a broad range. So depending on the mood, the situation, for instance, you're commuting or wherever you are, you can really find a game that really fits instantly for that specific moment, that specific experience. So, but yeah, more kind of a Sudoku kind of brain teasers.
Yeah, for me, since I'm not allowed to name the own games, but Everwing got me, to be honest. I played it every day for 2-3 weeks, and then I stopped. But again, that was a game that really showed, back in the days, it was like roughly end of last year, so that really showed, you know, the direction the platform was going to. And another game that really influenced me very early on was the basketball game from FRVR. I mean, I opened when I read the news that, you know, the Facebook Instant platform is opening up. So I went through, played a couple of games, and I got stuck on this one because it was so simple and, well, beautiful in a sense, because it was just, yeah, compete against your friends with a game. In this case, it was a basketball game, and beat the high score. And that really showed me the opportunities, that the entrance barriers into these opportunities are super low, and they're, as you might have guessed from the answers here, super low to that date, because there is no breakout success yet, and the whole platform is not defined. So yeah, everybody has the opportunity. I mean, the guys sitting here, but also the guys and girls sitting here, and then obviously the ladies and gentlemen over there all have the opportunity to still define a genre on the platform. I think that's the good stuff about it.
So you guys think there will be like the first killer instant game within the next year? The first, I don't know, let's call it like Clash Royale or whatever. How do you guys see it? Like, how fast will it develop? Like, how fast will we see like really social, engaging games, complex gameplay? Does it have to be that complex? Can it be hyper casual? Is there room for both? How would it look like a year from now? What do you guys think?
I suppose room for both, and yes, I'd say in a year from now we would have seen at least the first one. I mean, there will be several, but yeah, I mean, and it, you know, a breakout game would be such that people are actually, you know, talking about it, or you know, there's blogs about it, or you know, reviews about it, and then those things happen like organically, not like, you know, company even pushing like, you know, please write about our game, but because, you know, everyone's talking about it anyways, then it, you know, people write about it as well, and you know, that's going to happen.
I bloody hope so. Hopefully there'll be at least 4. I think the interesting thing is, I mean, you can look at MAU numbers on Messenger relatively easily, so it's kind of public information if you go and search for it. The top 10 at the moment range from about 1.4 million monthly actives to just shy of 10 million monthly active. So DAU numbers there, you know, you're probably getting over 1 million DAU in the top games. So those are for games that we're saying are interesting, but they're not the breakout hits. So, you know, use your imagination and think, well, if we do discover the Clash Royale of instant games, what does that mean for DAU? You know, it means something really significant. And given that we haven't seen it yet, and you generally will see something early on a platform that does at least, you know, point the way, I think there's loads of opportunity for that. But I don't think it's going to look the same as the stuff that's there. So you're seeing right now, you know, a lot of people doing kind of ketchup-esque things, so super lightweight games. That I think it's going to be a bit more than that. So not necessarily complex, or at least not complex for the player, but I think probably more complex for the developers, which is another reason why, you know, I think it's been good timing for all of us to get involved at the stage that we did, because the demands will start creeping up. For players, and like particularly our model, because we're looking for a mainstream, you know, a tens of millions DAU kind of success. Obviously, the gameplay experience itself is going to be something that's very accessible, but it's going to need a lot of layers to give you that longer term retention that at the moment you don't see in the games.
So,
yeah, but even that, I think Alexander just mentioned it, that there's with 1,000 games and you see a max of 100, right? I mean, there is not in store experience yet, and this one is coming. And with the store experience, it basically means that whoever gets a good position within that store will have access to, or yeah, will have access to all the people using Facebook Instant Messenger. So, assuming that this one comes out within, you know, the next year, then yeah, I do see that that's really going to be a very important milestone for all of us to, you know, reach the mass market.
So are messenger games like a blue ocean opportunity? How do you guys see it? Is it scalable? Is it good enough already today? Do I have to wait like a year, or can I already build like a sustainable business out of it?
Yeah, you can already build good games on it, and that means you can already build successful games on it. I mean, it is still developing platform, and things are still, you know, changing and going forward, which is a good thing. But it's definitely a good time to start and start learning and start developing, so that you can be among the first breakthrough hits. And when we talked earlier about the discoverability of the games, and you mentioned the kind of the store experience, I do think that's one thing that you know, most likely will still develop, and I'm looking forward to things like user ratings, or, you know, like if your users like your game, and then the well-rated games will kind of bubble on the top. That'll help out also the good games to come out.
Yeah, I think as well, if you just combine, 1.3 billion users with 1,000 games and all the opportunities you basically have, and it's definitely like a blue ocean opportunity at this point. The access point is like so easy for the users. They can just stay where they are anyways right now. They can just chat with their friends and invite them, and it can go social and viral and so on and so on. So I think definitely it's like a very great opportunity, and there are definitely companies who also do make money there. So I think also if you're just thinking about like, hey, should I do a messenger game? I'm not really sure. Should I take this step? If you not do it now, you should have done it now 3 months before already, or you would never do it, because like this kind of opportunity that their new platform, which is like evolving, it's not happening every year, right? So last time it happened with the App Store was like 2008 or 9 or something like this. So almost more than 10 years ago already. So yeah, definitely. I mean, go for it.
Yeah, also depends on the company size. I think that's a question many have to answer, right? Like Spil Games, as an example, we do have a large portal business still to date, and then we have a lot of installs and success, I'd even say, on mobile. So for us, doing HTML5 games and messenger games is certainly important, and where we spend time and resources on, but it's not the entire focus of the company. So that being said, if you are like a 2, 3, 4, 5 people team, or even a 15-person team, you can easily finance and make good money with instant games, assuming that you have the amount of users, of course, necessary. So again, for all the bigger companies, I do think they're going to wait. They're going to wait for the breakout success, and I don't think the next breakout success is going to be the scale of what Clash Royale is today, for example. I think it's going to be more of a doodle jump, right? Like a very early thing where everybody says, "Wow, that's cool. I do see opportunities. I can do that as well." And then it will gradually increase in difficulty. So following up on what Alex just said, just decide when you want to jump in, right? You want to jump in now. It's risky and it's developing. And honestly, I think we spend more time on SDK changes and API adjustments at times than developing games. But that's just part of what you have to pay early on to be there.
Exactly what you said, I wanted to ask as well, because right now, if you look at the distribution of publishers on the platform, there's a Zynga, which is like a AAA studio, right? There's not yet a Supercell. There's a little bit of King, which are also one of the kings of the App Store in terms of revenues. Do you think like more AAA studios will join very soon, or are they really like in a waiting position? Do you agree with Patrik?
Basically, I hope for it, because no, really, seriously, because when the biggest studios are jumping on a new platform, it always proves that the platform is mature enough that they can make enough money. But what we also see that just bringing a brand there does not always means that you have instant success as well. So, which is also very good for an independent developer. So it means that even with a known name, let's say, you can be successful. And that's also like one of the good things for this kind of platform.
What do the other guys think?
It seems like that those guys, the big guys, are still waiting. I'm sure they will come in later.
What are they waiting for? What do you think?
They have such bigger organizations. They need to think it through, and they have existing business. They need to kind of safeguard, and they can't rock the boat too quickly. So it's just taking them some time to think through.
Yeah, I mean, Zynga have been very open about being big believers in the space. Pretty much the same time we started, actually. So I think in their last earnings call, I know because I pay a lot of attention to them. They're putting a lot of investment into it, and I think you're going to see some interesting stuff coming from them in the next few months. As for the other companies, like King did have an early experiment on instant games. They haven't followed that up yet. Supercell and the others, all of them are very interested, but the opportunity cost for them, if you've got Clash Royale, do you want to take 5 people off Clash Royale to do anything else? No, you want to keep them on Clash Royale. So you'd rather wait and see what happens with the space and probably look at some of the existing companies that are there and have some success and then jump, because they don't need to. But the interest level is very high, especially in comparison to other platforms that people have come along and said are going to be the next big thing. So, because I think part of why the games industry has been a little bit slow to respond to, which I think is actually in all of our benefits to some degree, but I think the reason the industry as a whole has been a little bit slow to notice this is because the industry tends to get carried away with things that are a little bit more glamorous in terms of technology. So also like VR and AR as being things that swallowed a lot of people's time in the last few years. In actual fact, I think this is where the next large successes are going to come from, and they're not going to come from those other spaces. So as that becomes clearer now, you'll see the larger companies come in. So in 2 years' time, I think they're going to be here in a big way.
Right. So when generally speaking about messenger games, a lot of people only talk about instant games, right? Because that's the most what we know. It's Facebook. It's potentially one of the biggest channels of the Western world. What else is there? Like messenger games are much bigger than just instant games. So are you guys looking into Asia, into Russia? Are there other big opportunities? What you're seeing already?
Yeah, I mean, Asia's really the sort of the trigger point for this in the first place, clearly because of WeChat and how WeChat's really used as a platform in China. We actually started by doing some initial experiments on iMessage because in the West, Apple were actually the fastest at putting a store-like experience into messaging. Facebook's definitely the most interesting in the West for us. Viber are doing some things. Kik have been doing stuff for a while, but Kik don't have a big audience. So the way we see it personally is we see Facebook and then WeChat. And then some of the other Asian platforms are also interesting. But obviously, like as a Western company, you don't just, walk into China.
Some constraints, right?
Yeah. So that's slightly longer term for us.
Can you guys answer very quickly what your breakdown is by platform, i.e. in terms of your users between iOS and Google or Android?
Sure. So the question was like when you're looking at your Facebook Instant Plays, what is the distribution between Android users versus iOS users versus, because it's also desktop versus Windows users, I guess. So any of you guys want to share that?
Yeah, I think I wasn't sure. I think the majority of the users is on Android. I think it's 70 to 80%, something like this. Probably you know it as well. I don't know. And then the rest is iOS, and a little bit is like Android is taking.
As much as I can share for us, it very much depends on the game. So if you go more into hardcore or mid-core-ish games, there tends to be a little bit more iOS traffic. If it's more casual, it tends to be a little bit more Android. Because then also looking at the geographic approach, once again, it very much depends where the traffic is coming from. So in Vietnam, for example, you tend to have more Android users naturally, where in the US you have more iOS users.
I actually had a couple of questions, if I can. One of them is a very practical question is, if I have Messenger on my iPhone and my iOS, and I'm also playing on Facebook, do you, as publishers, know it's the same player?
Yes.
So if I make an in-app purchase with cash on my Android, that purchase can show up in my iOS version?
Yes, because you're always playing, as long as you're playing as yourself, it's always tracked.
Okay,
it's
so
always your progress.
So that is a sort of a way that an iOS user could make an in-app purchase by just going to the web?
Yes, potentially, yes.
Okay. And the second one is, you all have talked about HTML5 and how you're converting your HTML5 content. As a new developer, if you go to the Facebook developer site now, it says, these are the best tools to use. Do you recommend a developer use these development tools, or do you reckon they just program down to the metal in HTML5 and JavaScript?
Yeah, so we didn't have any existing HTML5 inventory, so we started from scratch ourselves. Earlier we used Phaser, now we're using Pixie, and those both are on the recommended list. So I think that the list has good engines. On top of Pixie, we've created some of our own technology, like a UI editor, some backend pod tech, and to kind of complement that engine. But yeah, other than that, yes, I would recommend one of those. Pixie at least works well for 2D games.
Hi, Facebook announced they're making some changes to the Messenger, that they will focus more on the interaction between people and maybe less on other things, maybe like games. So how do you think that's going to affect the instant games?
I think the Messenger redesign is going to be good for instant games because Messenger in its current form, you know, it has had a lot of stuff added to it in a relatively short period of time, so it could do with a bit of UI refresh. But if you look quite carefully on the limited number of screenshots that they showed, there's a very prominent Discover tab there now, where currently you see like 4, there's only going to be 3. Our guess would be that that's going to be a very good way of servicing games. Previously, when Facebook, because you know the Facebook been running loads of tests on what the 4 tabs should be. Certainly in Mojiworks, we've never been able to get 2 people at the same 4 tabs. I think that's going to slow down a lot, and we didn't see that make a big difference to the number of people that see instant games. So I think Messenger redesign overall is going to be probably a good thing, because also if we can keep people in Messenger, they're more likely to see games, and Facebook are very clearly publicly committed to it as well.
So do you guys have your games, do you have any versions that you do also to Android and iOS, or the games are exclusively on the Messenger app?
We are only on Messenger. Others?
Yeah, same with us. I mean, like we 100% focus on Messenger so far. We do have, for example, a Cookie Crush version live also on the Play Store, just to see if this somehow what does it affect if we are live there, how much organic downloads we get on the App Store. But still, it's just more Messenger focused.
All right.
Yeah, for us, we are basically on both, right, on mobile as well as on Messenger, but our Messenger games at the moment are exclusively on Messenger, and then the mobile games exclusively on mobile, but I do see an opportunity there in the future to actually have cross games, basically, or cross-platform games. They're assuming, of course, that they use the social aspect of the Messenger, right? Otherwise, it's pointless.
So it has to be the same game. If you're doing the cross-platform, it has to be the same game, because you don't want to make two separate versions of the same game on 2 different platforms.
Well, I could give you a couple of very good examples of where that is exactly what you should do. But yeah, when people talk about cross-platform, mostly they talk about people playing the same game on both platforms on the same server, for example. Yeah.